So I'll hit share screen.
So it should work.
Okay. Okay, so here's a selection of cards, and I can blow them up. So here's
And would you just explain to people which deck this is?
this is the Thoth deck.
Okay.
That's my pronunciation, Thoth. My favorite one. So I like the artwork. So I'm going to go through really quickly. I'm just going to show you each one of these for a few seconds, and you can just get an overall feel for what it is. Just take a couple of seconds here.
And we will describe these as we focus on some, right? Just so.
Right. We'll come back, but I just want to show you the overall,
Yeah.
because they're also wonderful. Okay. And a couple of others. Oops. Okay. So let's go back to the other one. Okay, so
Would you describe this just so
oh
Kelly?
yeah, oh okay. So there's this sword that's aimed upward, and toward the top of the sword, there's all these there's a circle around the sword, and then there are these what do you call those things that are coming out of that?
Or rays.
Rays, or you can see rays coming out. And then
Almost
there
looks like a pointy crown around it.
yeah,
But yeah.
that's right. Would someone else like to do the description? I don't think I'm as good as I should be with
It
it.
is a bit complicated because the sword is a greenish color and the handle seems to have almost like horns, what bull horns facing up and bull horns facing down with balls on either side. And then there's through the sword, there's how would you describe that with the yellow and the different geometric shapes? It's almost like shattered glass, but it's in yellow. And around that are like these little clouds or something. And then at the top of the sword is where Brent was describing this circle that the sword's going through, or yeah, I guess you'd say like a circle. And then these pointy spikes coming out with yellow and like a pale green going out. Anyone else want to add to the description?
I think the top thing there, that magical sort of the thing that the sword is poking through, it looks like a stylized crown that
Yes.
a king would wear.
Yes, it does look that way.
Yeah, and if we look on the other deck, it is a crown. So I think that's a good interpretation of.
Oh, okay.
The artists have their own interpretation too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they make, I mean, when a guy is an artist and he puts something like this into it.
So I just wanted to ask Kelly and Bob if they pick up a certain energy from what we've just said in the description, anything that they pick up from it.
Maybe like a war.
Oh, well, okay. So you just think because of the sword, is that why you say that?
Yeah, and the crown.
Yeah. And something kind of shattered, right?
Yeah.
Around it. Okay. Okay, Bob, do you have any comments?
He's kind of sleeping.
Okay. Okay, it's been a busy time for him.
Yes, he is. He's sleeping.
Okay, so Brent.
Oh, he's
Brent,
not sleeping. One
Okay.
sec.
All right. Brent, did you want to comment on that other one? Like, why did you pick that one?
Well, I picked it because it's available to blow up on this page.
Okay.
But I mean, what I see is I see a sword, a good sword, not the kind that murders people, but I see a good sword, and that when you arrive at what that sword can do for you, then you have this crown. That's all. really that I see.
Like strength, the strength of the sword, I guess.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay.
So let's put another one of these up.
Wow.
So there's a
Oh.
lot of different faces in there.
Yes. So there's a figure in the center, and you have, well, the figure, I'm trying to look at how would you describe that face? It's male. And he's wearing like a pointed kind of hat, but he has a beard.
A priest-like person,
Priest,
maybe.
like,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
a bit of a smile on his face.
Oh, it is the Hierophant, yeah. That's what I
And,
thought.
and a pentagram on his chest, and there's like a cherub in it, would you say? Would you?
Hmm,
Anyway.
Anyway,
um,
and then the faces on the outside are some human and some animal faces.
yeah,
He's kind of in the middle, like there's an association between him and maybe the consciousness of lower forms of life also.
yes, like the animals below, and then there is a face in the upper right hand corner, and then like a human face, and on the left is like a bird type face.
His
And
left
he's
hand,
holding, by the way, he's holding a key, right? Which I think is important.
you mean in his left hand?
And his, well, our
Oh, right hand, right.
left side, but right hand.
Right hand, right.
And then he, with his left hand, it's downwards, and he's holding almost his two fingers out, almost like you would when someone does a peace sign. He's doing that. It's extended. Oh, and then it's that Isis, like Isis in front of him.
Hmm.
Down below.
Do you have
There's
any thoughts on this, Alexandria? Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yes, for me, he's like, sorry, let me refocus my screen. Okay, for me, again, just based on the image, it's like he's almost a conductor, he's a conduit. Has all of life which is surrounding him, lower form of consciousness, higher form of consciousness, the figures that are more liminal, such as Isis, which Diane noticed, the goddess of magic before him, and he's just in the middle of everything, and he's kind of like a conduit or embodiment of the very life force of all of this, cosmic manifestations.
What is a short definition of a hierophant?
The short definition, the Hierophant, or the Pope, rather. So this is connected to the zodiac of Taurus, and traditionally the card means that, like authority figure, society figure, the system, right? The system. Yeah, like who's this? Like Dave was saying, right? We are all spiritual beings, but there's parts of us that, we have a shared experience of a material reality. There's certain things that seemingly you can't get around. You need to pay the bills, need to have some money to survive in this world, a roof over your head, etc., right? So the Hierophant is kind of like representative of that system of governance, authority, like that. So in a way, kind of like the conductor, right? The conductor of life, like a conductor of the orchestra.
But he's in the Merkaba, right? Isn't that the Merkaba that he's in with the star shape there?
Sorry, Merkaba, what do you?
Well, it's almost like the Star of David that he's standing.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I was just noticing.
Yes.
That's very faint in there, but there it is.
Yes. So,
Yeah,
I
that's
did-
right. And also, if you look behind his head, though, it's kind of like the flower of life for me.
Yeah, like a clover almost, like in Ireland.
Yeah.
mhm.
Who's the artist on this? Let's give him a call.
Oh, but you know what? Around that flower, is that a snake?
Yes, indeed, it is like a serpentine kind of figure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he's a very powerful person. He's got a lot of these things at his command. And I remember reading about the Hierophant, and he can be somebody who helps you, can guide you, or, would could assist because he's got all this knowledge and power, and he's not the magician, but he could. I think he is powerful in that way.
Shall we move on?
All right.
There's a lot in that one.
Yeah, that was, there was tons in that one.
Yeah, and the artist was a woman who Crowley hired to do this, but he instructed her on what he wanted in each card.
Ah,
Yeah, she's you could look that up.
Mhm.
this is interesting.
Yeah.
So there's a woman there and she's got these horns coming out of her head, and they're very complex horns.
Yes, like it looks like she has like a hat on, but the horns are coming out of that helmet or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Did you say?
And then underneath her is this what's that called? That animal, that horned animal?
Bighorn sheep.
Horn sheep, right? Yeah.
Or ram or something?
The ram. Yeah.
Ram.
You see it on the back of
Yeah.
your Dodge trucks.
Right.
But she's looking away
Yeah, that's
From
kinda-
us. Yeah.
and the ram is looking at us.
It's almost like he's a guardian.
And
Mm.
she's holding like a sphere in her left arm, right? She's holding it, hugging it, and then like a staff in the other, in the right.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
there's like a plant around her or something. It's something.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's spiky and strange.
Yes, yeah.
And that
So
thing
how-
she's holding, it looks like some kind of is that a jewel on the end of it, or
Yes, it looks like it. Yes. And
There's a-
she's looking out to like a desert or something.
there's something dark about
Like
this.
way out.
Yeah.
Way out. And
She's
something.
kind of like a hybrid almost. Does she have scaly skin, or is that something she's just wearing?
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's her armor. Her skin, if you look at the arms, it's quite soft. and
Right.
feminine.
Yeah. She's looking out onto a sort of a desert plain with a river running through it. Maybe it's the Nile. I don't know.
I think there's something in this card we're not seeing. Well,
Yeah.
Alexandria, do you have anything that can help us here?
For me, I think she is just, I know this card very well. For me, she is very distant, because if you see, like, she has everything, right? If you look at the further surroundings, it's kind of like, it looks like desert, like barren, it's not that interesting. It doesn't even look that habitable, but she's surrounded by a lot of lush greenery. She has animals. She's holding a big disc. She has a scepter with her. She has this kind of a crown with her. She has a nice seat and everything. So she's obviously very comfortable, like notice her posture, notice her kind of mood. It's not tense. She's in her domain, but kind of she's not interested in it. Her attitude is very aloof. So she's looking away. She's turning her attention away from it. It's like almost like a bored archetype of a bored, rich housewife, something like this. Like I'm tired of these jewels. I'm tired of this seat. I'm tired of all this lushness. Maybe I have my sight set on something else. All this riches, all this manifestation, it bores me.
Oh.
Mm.
And is that a ram? What'd you say? That's
Yes, definitely.
and what would that symbolize?
Well, the ram, if we think about the ram, we can think about Aries zodiacally, and Aries has a lot to do with drive, okay, with vigor, with ego. And interestingly enough, ego is material consciousness. It's gross consciousness. And again, discs or pentacles has to do with the material, as I explained earlier. So that could be one aspect of what the ram represents, together with the Queen of the Pentacles, the Queen of the Suit. The ram also, well, more of the goat, really. The goat has more connections with esotericism, such as with the head of Bahamut being the goat, the sacrificial goat in
Yes.
Black Sabbaths and such, right?
Mhm.
So one could also look at this kind of and kind of see a more abstract sort of a goat. But in particular, that would be for me in the context of this. I would say it makes more sense that it's a ram. Yeah.
Okay.
When we see that it's the Queen of Discs, is that like the Queen of Pentacles? Like
She is the Queen of Pentacles, correct? Yes, she's just called the Pentacles is called disc in the Thoth. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
I gotta try to get used to that.
Okay, let's pick something that is different. So I like this. So there's a sun, and there are rays coming out of the sun, different kinds of rays, and they're quite beautiful. And there are two dancing little angels, I guess, maybe with butterfly wings, that are dancing there. And then there's little images of a couple of dancing creatures, and there's a crab down at the bottom, sort of
Oh, is that the zodiac? That's
a
the
see-through. Oh yeah, maybe that's
Correct.
yeah,
Yes, it
right.
is. It
It's a
is. Yes.
zodiac. Okay. So so they've figured out what the zodiac is, and they're in touch with the source of it all, the sun, and they're enjoying it all.
Oh,
Mhm.
Enjoying it all. That's what it says to me too.
Yeah, they're celebrating
Yep.
in ecstasy. Yeah.
but they're really close to. There's two discs by their feet, right? And they're twins, are they not? Look like twins. So is
Maybe.
and they're
Well,
right by Cancer, right? The zodiac sign for
they've
Cancer.
got little butterfly wings.
Yeah.
And they're
Ah.
actually they're different wings, so maybe they're not twins.
Oh. Oh yes. Okay.
Little fairies or something.
For me, like the glory of the sun's rays, the brightest star in the cosmos, shining its light and spreading its energizing vitality onto the rest of the cosmos, onto the rest of creation, lending the power to the zodiac, which influences what happens in our material realms. And of course, we are all born under a certain zodiac sign, lends its power to enliven our personality, our characteristics, our traits like this. The cherubs for me in this at the base of it kind of are like almost like like if you will look up old European heraldry, like the coat of arms of the royals or the sovereigns, often there are angels that are supporting the crown or supporting the banner of the arms of those royalty. So for me, this is kind of like the cosmic cherubs, kind of glorifying the power of the sun, glorifying that solar life-giving power.
Hmm.
Mm.
And what would the significance of the two of them be for this?
The two of them, I would say there's no clear binary indicated, like there's no clear gender. Even their face is not very clear. But I would say probably, you could say yin and yang almost. You could say opposing forces, divine feminine, divine masculine, polarities, dualities. Yeah, everything is brought together underneath the sun.
Ah.
Mm.
And the way their legs are, there's like a shape that's formed between their wings and their legs too, that could have almost like a royal kind of look to it, right? That symbol that you might see.
In between, let me take a look here.
Where the green is, right? I'm just
Where the
looking at how they fit within that space that they have there.
That's a good observation. It's
Yeah.
almost like a little bud or a little flower.
Yes, or the Holy Grail.
Yes, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Those are all very, yeah.
Yes. Oh, this is fascinating. This is a beautiful card. It's lovely.
Yeah. Very much so.
Thank you, Alexandria.
Okay.
Thank you, Brent.
I've got a couple others if you're interested. We can come back to them if you want to.
Well, let's go to, does anyone else have a card they'd like to show? Like Alexandra, did you want to discuss the death card?
The death card, sure, yes. So actually I can show some from my own collection. I have many decks here, so let me just fish them out. But before I get my camera started, I'll go through a little bit about death itself. So when we think about death itself, we usually associate it with our perishing or the ending of something, right? But actually that's not like, I'll use the seasons as an example. Like everybody usually loves summer, is very much a fan of summer, but once fall comes, people complain of depression, people complain of seasonal affective disorder, all this. Some people say that they feel hopeless or less energy and so unstimulated and uninspired by the environment because everything seems so barren and gray and dark and depressing and dull and cold. But I look around and I see that the truth of it, for me, the truth of it, and really the truth of it is that the nature itself, Mother Nature, she has not died. She has not gone anywhere. She's actually more alive than ever before. She has receded her elements into herself. She has removed the chlorophyll from her trees. She has drawn her energy inwards so that she can renew and rest and rejuvenate, right? So that she may come back in more bountiful, brilliant glory for a new season forward. So those processes of life, those things of those mechanics of dynamism and bound and beauty, those are more active than ever before. But it is only to the naked eye that everything has receded and it's not that interesting because it's really in the surface. She has gone into herself to renew. So death for me very much is really representative of that, is representative of a transformation, because I don't believe that with the passing of the body, because I don't actually identify myself with the body. There was one very famous Hindu saint, actually, she had said, I am not this little girl. I am ever blissful, expansive, universal consciousness. I don't identify with just this body. So when the body perished, when the physical manifestation perished, that's not the end of who one really is. That's not the end of one story. That's the maybe end of one chapter, but not something else is beginning, not the end of the whole story. Okay, so with that, I'll open my camera and I'll just show you all physical card. So this is a continuation of the Thoth of what Brent was showing. So yeah, everyone can just take that in.
And one thing I want to add to what you're saying is one thought that I've been having repeatedly lately is that just as death is an illusion, really, when you think of it, then a lot of our negative emotions are illusions too, right? We're kind of in this material world, but really a lot of that is illusion. So I'm just going to see if I can get this up, if you want to continue discussing it.
Sure. So the death, for me, because every tarot card, every tarot key, 12 of them are connected to zodiac signs, to each of the 12 zodiacs. So for me, being a Scorpio, I identify very strongly as a Scorpio. So for me, my card, I can, the information and the meaning behind it and the symbology is very near and dear to me, and it flows, the knowledge flows very naturally to me. If we think about Scorpio, can explain actually a lot about death, because we have the Scorpion, and it has 3 animal totems really associated with it. So there's the Scorpion. Scorpio is associated with the scorpion, with the eagle, and then with the phoenix. So it's kind of like the cyclical evolutions of a soul and one's own personal journey through maturity. You have start off like, maybe in a more defensive mode, crawling around on the ground in a survival mode, then you learn to fly a little bit higher over that, but you're still looking out for your self-interest, but you have a higher kind of like a vantage point. You're a little bit more sophisticated. Then you have the rebirth, final rebirth into the deathless transcendental phoenix. And it's kind of like, okay, I've let my petty mundane concerns go, and I'm just really thriving in the glory of the moment and the now, and reveling in the beauty of the divinity of my being. So death really takes us from, and death can be, this can be an incredible catalyst, because not to really fixate on just the card or the symbol or the word death or what it looks like itself, but really what that can be, what can that can be a catalyst for, because to be reborn, to transform, to transmute certain energies, to go on into a new leg of one's journey and expand to length and breadth that one has never explored before, and it all starts by entering through the gateway of what some would refer to as death. So yeah, we have the image here now, thanks to Diane. So everybody, just take it in. It can be quite emotional for a lot of people, and there's really a lot in this card. We could spend really hours or the whole night looking at everything and picking every little thing apart in this. It's particularly rich. So yeah.
So I guess that symbolizes the Grim Reaper, but he's in skeleton form. We're used to seeing him more in like a robe or something, right? And I see the serpent there too. And it's interesting, there's a fish going through the serpent. And is that, I think of the fish symbolizing Christianity and the serpent in the Garden of Eden. And I also see other figures through there as if they passed on, like souls that have passed on, and these little swirls here and there. Anyway, that's what I see.
And well, the snake is also like a symbol of rebirth, because it sheds its skin and emerges as sheds its old skin, its old body, and becomes a new being. There's the scorpion, and I see the phoenix above. So all of those symbols you were talking about, Alexandria, well, some of them, I can see that. Yeah, those entities that may have passed on, swirling in the background. It's very active. He's busy.
Yeah, he's having a time of his life, it looks like. And he's dancing and swinging that he's cutting them down and just going crazy with all that stuff.
But there's yeah, go ahead, Brent.
And he's also in front of us, and he's operating in front of us. So it's almost like you can't catch up to him and get away from him, or it's like he's already finished with you. And he's moving on.
Interesting. Yeah.
The dynamic principle of death, the dynamic principle of what that process, rebirth, transformation, really entails, because it's just like akin to what I was saying. If you look at the seasons, right, reflected in the seasons, it really doesn't look like that much on the surface. It's quite jarring and quite shocking in how static everything has become on the surface, but really it's below the surface that everything is really at its most active, more than ever before. Actually, the Reaper, he's dancing around, he has a big job to do, he's moving from place to place, and he's not staying still. He's definitely not static. There's everyone who's moving around, right? We have these figures who are swirling around. We have the fish which swims, the phoenix who's rising above, who's flying, all of the elements moving as well. So everything, actually, the dance of perhaps one lifetime has concluded, but the dance of a rebirth into a new chapter, and the engines being turned on of a new story, propelling you forward towards your new story. They are just getting fired up.
What is with those lines? I don't think
Yes,
we've
the
mentioned those yet.
geometric, yeah, the geometric shapes kind of, and it seems to be showing either different stages or like a matrix of some sort of thing. What do you think, Brent?
Look at look at his left femur, and you've got all these lines coming out of that bone,
Mhm.
and they merge together sort of and go up to the right, and then there are little circles coming off of them that are, I guess, representative of the transformation that Alexandria was talking about. So the death is connected to all that, and it seems like he's part of all that, and it looks like it's a recurring thing, so that you get into one of those places that are in the circles, which is maybe the new change in you. You get into that, and that's because you've died, and your old self has died, and now you've got a new self, and it seems like death is part of the whole thing. So all these. So you can't get away from death. In other words, you're going to be living in life, doing what you're doing, and then death is going to get you. But you may move on into another renewal, and then death will get you there too, probably. And so it's a recurrent kind of a thing. Death doesn't come once; it comes over and over, and so does rebirth.
Thank you, Brent. I also notice that death is very solid. Like the colors, the black is very solid. The fish, the snake,
Mm.
the scorpion, they're all very earthy. And then everything else is light and swirly ahead of him.
That's a very good point that you raised, actually, Diane. To your point, I would say, like the old adage, right? The only two certainties in this life are death and taxes. Taxes, maybe not even if you can live in Switzerland or something, but death. That there's a finality, the mortality. Maybe not even finality if we're talking in a spiritual context, in a metaphysical context, we can remove that word finality, but rather the mortality and the fragility of that mortality, and the finiteness, the finite nature of mortality, because the spirit is infinite, right? Our journey is infinite. It knows no bounds. It knows no limits. It has never been born, nor does it ever cease, nor does it ever die. But when it comes to our mortality, to our embodied states in this material bodies, right? There is a time limit, so to speak, on that, right? There's only a number of years, even though our lifespan, and it's quite amazing if you think about it, in such short period of time. I think from the 1700s to the 1800s, the average lifespan of European or North American citizen is maybe at the very, very most, maybe for average person, mid 50s to early 60s. If you get up into your 70s or 80s, that's like really extraordinary, like incredible. And now we're seeing an average of 90s, and even more and more people are living quite happily and healthily into their triple digits. And who knows, with the improvement of our man-made technologies and the medical wonders that are coming out and being churned out, what the new lifespan is going to be, even like just in a decade's time from now, right? But nonetheless, at this point in time in the history, there is however many years, be it 10 years, be it stillborn baby, be it you live to 125, 200 years, whatever. It's a finality, isn't it? That isn't forever. That isn't eternal. And that's what the message of kind of death comes back to. It's something that is the absolute, that is surety, that is solid, that you can kind of count on. But then beyond that, you can see everything going more etheric and becoming lighter and kind of transcending and reshaping, reforming. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and all those lines, I think Diane mentioned before, the phoenix up in the upper left-hand corner, those lines connect to the phoenix too.
Yes.
So
there you go.
it's all one thing. It's all one thing.
I have two observations. The first is that that series of lines that are coming off them, which are fascinating, it has a sort of a phallic look to it. So that's the
Does it?
first observation. Take a look, see where it's
Mhm.
coming from.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Secondly, he's also number 13. And there,
Yes.
there's a certain amount of superstition out there.
Mhm.
That's a spooky number. So
Mm.
Yeah, interesting.
I noticed there's something wrong with his hands too. If you were to try to mimic that,
yeah,
it doesn't work.
you get a little twisted arms.
Yeah, his arms are like the left is on the right and the right's on the left. The way you see how if you
Backwards.
tried to hold the scythe with your left arm,
Yes.
the way
Yeah.
that he is, with your fingers down like that, your thumb it should be on his left side, but it's on his right. So there's something quite wrong with that, right? He's got his right hand on his left side.
Yes.
So
But sorry, I'm just gonna say we're no longer, one must remember though, we're no longer in the realm of the living. We have
Right.
descended to the underworld in key
Yeah.
number 13. So there you go. The left can be on the right can be on the left. The bottom, the floor can be the ceiling, and vice versa, right? Everything can be topsy
Yeah.
turvy, upside
Yeah.
down, inside out. So we have gone into the realm where it has defied into the realm where logic does not rule anymore, where
Right.
the principle of the very realm and the element and the what's going on, the whole process that's going on, it defies any kind of logic or even rational cognition.
Right.
Okay. And 13, I will just very briefly say, because somebody mentioned 13. 13 is a very important number. 13 is actually the number of the goddess. Okay, so somebody said that they also noticed that there's like a phallic symbol, and if on our side, from when we're looking into the key, all of these lines comes from the left side, which is the feminine side. Okay, so we have like the phallus and then the yoni, so the divine father principle, the creative principle of that seeds, okay, that gives forth, and then the divine feminine, which receive and you manifest from. So it's really all in there, and all of these lines ties into the phoenix, and then it's crowned by the number 13, which is the number, the mystical number, the very special number of the divine feminine, the great mother of the cosmos. Yeah, the great cosmic womb. So everything comes full circle.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
I have one more that I'd like to show you.
Let's just see if I have this for, there you go.
Ooh. So which one's this?
This is I think it's the Ace of Cups.
Oh,
Yeah, correct. Yes.
There we go. Okay, that's better. That's one of the more beautiful ones in the deck, I think. I don't know what to say about this. It's really just beautiful and just spectacular.
yeah. It says all energy.
Very 1940s, 50s. Yeah, just the
Or
color.
20s or 30s even. When did Aleister Crowley have this done? What decade was that?
It was in the 20s.
The 20s. There
Oh,
we go.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, then that does have that look to it. Yeah, I'm just trying to get a sense of what is coming out of this, right?
Is something coming out of the cup or is something going into the cup?
I think
Oh,
both. Yeah, there's two different. Wow. There's
and
Maybe in the center with that the beam that's coming in,
yeah.
and the pattern is going out. Maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
and the symbol on, oh, it looks like 3 rings or a key. The top
Yeah.
of the key
Two-
going down.
Yeah, about 2.5 rings. There's a sort of a semi-moon there,
Oh.
and then 2 circles.
Similar to the Hierophant. He was hanging on to a staff with those 3 rings on it.
Yes.
I wonder what that means.
The 3 rings, for me, it really reminds me of the triple goddess sigil. So the aspect of the triplicity aspect of the mother goddess is the waxing moon, the full moon, and the waning moon. So respectively of her life stage as maiden, mother, and then crone. And also Diane de Poitiers, who was the royal mistress of one of the old Bourbon French kings. It's very similar to her symbol because she had 3 crescent moons all intertwined.
Oh.
Mm.
And
Like
all these waves and this movement, how would you interpret that, Alexandria?
The movement of, like, when you are divinely inspired, when you met your partner, when you met a really exciting lover, when you met a person in your life that changed your destiny, or when you have a new dimension of consciousness or a new something open up within you, or you're able to forgive someone or overcome some fears, or you just rode a roller coaster or did a bungee jump for the first time. Aren't you flooded? Isn't your chest, your heart chakra area, and your whole being just flooded with so much? So we have the flooding of the thou cup overfloweth, all of this inspiration, all of these feelings, this inextricable ecstasy, pain, bewilderment, everything and everything in between coming out. And there's so many things. For me, it's almost like it's quite psychedelic. Because at the bottom, it's very different than the top. The top is a little bit more defined. The bottom is kind of like just more, it's looks almost like, I don't know, like something melting, almost like you melt a plastic or you melt a resin, like on TikTok. Then the chalice is supported by a lotus. And the chalice is on top of the lotus though. So lotus, usually we would lotus is not to do with the heart so much, it's to do with the crown chakra. The chalice and the cups has to do more with emotion, with feeling, which is the heart. So it's kind of like the heart trumps the head. And the heart does send way more information to the brain, factually, than vice versa. So again, being the Ace of Cups, it's like the pure, fresh water energy and a burst of renewed emotional, intuitive energy. May thy cup overfloweth, but overfloweth with what? You have inspiration, but for what? You have waters, but are you going to keep them pure? And are you going to distill them even more? Are you going to turn it into wine, mix it with something? Are you going to poison it? Are you going to heat it up? Are you going to freeze it? Ace of Cups, pure, unbridled emotions, the river of emotions flowing up, flowing open.
I also look at, the lower part, and it looks almost childlike, right?
Yes.
The colors, the painting, all that.
Yeah.
And then as the person is transforming, things become more powerful, more defined, right?
Yes.
Excellent one, Brent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a beautiful deck, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'd like to show one last card. I don't know if it's the way we should end it, but it is one that I had not spent a lot of time looking at this deck. And then Dave pointed it out to me several years ago, something about the Devil card in the Rider deck. And I went, wow, I never noticed that before. So I thought, let's look at this one. So first of all, any comments about this card before I begin?
What's the name of the card?
It's the Devil.
The Devil. Okay.
It's about restriction and there's other meanings, many other meanings, but I think feeling trapped and imprisoned is probably one of them. But it also has to do with greed and materialism and that kind of thing. Being too caught up with money and could be some deception. So yeah.
I see fear in that card. His face.
So do you feel fear from his face, or you see fear in his face?
I feel a little fear. Yeah, I feel a little fear in those eyes and that face. And I'm thinking that the devil is, it's like what we fear. You know, we call that the devil, we call that Satan. The fear of dying and there not being a life after death. The fear of, to Christians, the fear of being thrown in hell. There's just some kind of a scary feeling in all that.
And yet the faces of the little figures don't have fear. They're
Yeah,
kind of
they're
neutral.
pretty nonchalant.
Yeah.
He's given the Spock's symbol too.
Oh,
They're in,
yeah. Look at that.
they're in chains, though. Notice they're in chains. They
Yeah,
may not-
that's right. They're
But
hooked
the
up. on it.
chains are to the pedestal. They're
Yeah.
not chained to Satan.
Well, it's his pedestal. That's pretty close.
Yes.
But notice as well that the chains around them, they're quite loose, huh? They're very,
Yes.
very loose. Like they're not being they're not being
Thank you.
strangled by it.
Yes, thank you, Alexandria. That's what Dave pointed out to me. I said, I never
Mm.
noticed that before.
Mm.
And really, I guess it's to say that we can choose to live a very base kind of life, right? With greed and gluttony and, you know, whatever, right? But it's our choice, right?
You can remove those chains.
We can remove those chains.
Yeah, but who would ever choose to be in chains consciously? I don't think anyone would ever choose that consciously. We find ourselves in chains, you know, just look at our own minds and look at the way our lives and stuff. And, you know, when it gets hard and it gets difficult, it's not like I chose that. It's like it just happened. Or even if it gets really good, that's, you know, I mean, if we could choose, I'd be choosing, you know, the best stuff all the time and be living the best life possible every second if I could choose that. But that's not the way life seems to appear.
But we do make choices in our life, right?
It appears that way, but
Yeah. I mean, you know, when, I don't know, if we went out and had drinks, at some point we make a choice, okay, we've had enough. As much as we may want an extra, you know, another drink or two, we do choose, you know, not to continue. And others may say, no, I just want to keep going for that, right? So, but I just want to hear what, Dave, did you want to add anything?
Well, I guess it's about fear and, you know, that enslavement. People are mostly enslaved by fear. And you can, you know, choose to free yourself of that. You can remove those chains. They can, you know, I definitely, you can choose not to. You can move away from fear. You can see fear and why this devil is trying to scare you and keep you enslaved in fear, and you can choose to not live in fear, to remove that, to free yourself, remove your own chains.
you could say that to yourself, but tomorrow you might get afraid because your car wouldn't start and you're going to be late for work, or you might get afraid because the car, you know, hits another car and now you got an accident. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't determine what's going to happen in the future by just saying, I'm going to feel this way from now on.
No,
I mean,
no.
that would be a great choice if we could make it.
That's not what, that's basic. Yeah, I'm not, I may have said that, but that's not how it works. If you stop and see it for what it is, then you can shift that. You might not be able to get rid of it entirely, but you can see it for what it is. If you're able to just stop for a minute and say, okay, this fear has been imposed on me, or I'm in a fearful situation. You know, you don't always have that choice. I agree. But a lot of the fear that we live with day to day is somewhat imposed on us, and we let ourselves get into a habit of it. But to look at it and think about it, meditate on it, and decide, okay, I'm gonna remove that from my life, or I'm gonna choose a different way to engage with these things that bring fear up into my life.
So the loose chains to me say that they could be taken off if they were aware of the fact that they could take them off.
Yeah.
And they seem like they're they're believing that they're stuck in that position, but
Mhm.
they're not really.
Mhm.
So something has to happen to wake us up when we get trapped in that side of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to what Satan is on, or the devil is on. And to me, that block, right, represents the material world. So he sits upon that, but they are fastened to the material world,
Mm,
right?
Oh, that's a good one.
mm.
Anyway, Alexandria, would you like to comment?
Yes, actually, I'll share. I was doing this I pulled this one, rather a client pulled it actually when I was doing a reading not so long ago. And I had told her one insight that came from this was I told her, really, who are you? Who do you think you are? Do you think you're the master of your situation, or are you a slave to your situation? Do you own your situation, or do the situation own you? Do you own your fear? Do you own responsibility, or do all of those things own you? Are you the chain? Are you the chained, or are you the master of your situation, i.e., the devil? Right? So I think for a lot of us, when the issue of fear, because we're very dualistic beings most of our time, because of our conditioning, our mind, we have a very difficult time being ambiguous, right? And we see something like this and we recognize it as bad. We want to get away from it, or we may be so oblivious to it, and we think that there's no other way than to go along with that system, than to be under that destructive influence, than to live our life in an unhealthy, unfulfilling, unhappy way, right? But
Mm.
if we can flip the switch on it and have a different perspective, or maybe even put ourselves into the position of master of our own situation, which we do by taking responsibility, right? Like, I know things are not, I'm not trying to say that things can just be magic away by the snap of a fingers, or by just saying some magic words or affirmations, or having a certain, thought, but really step by step, taking responsibility. The more that you take responsibility, the more that you look at your situation, recognize it, and maybe see beyond what you have been conditioned to see it as, what you have been conditioned to relate to it as, then the situation becomes malleable. The situation becomes less threatening. Then you realize, oh, I have this chain around my neck. I could remove it. I can see this figure, and maybe I can take his hand. We can have a coffee together. He can come out of the pedestal. The three of us use this as a coffee table. I can get up there on the pedestal for a while. Huh? Yeah.
Ah, yeah.
Yes.
And so really what you're saying is it's a person's life choices, right?
It's a person's life choices. Yes. Because, like, addictions, fear, like, I'm just going through some of the traditional associations with this key. Addictions, fear, negativity, negative belief systems, right? Toxic conditioning, because, like, the behaviors, because, like, hatred, violence, that is all taught. That is learning. Okay, that has to be conditioned. If you take a little kid and you tell him to hit his friend, or to strike some, like, to harm an animal or something like that, they will cry. They will be so resistant, because that's not in their nature. The people who does those really evil things, this has been conditioned to them. They've been desensitized. That thing has been taught, right? So as much as something has been taught, it can also be unlearn it, right? But coming to the consciousness of that, then when you are conscious, right, when you see things clearly, you can have discernment. From then on, you can make action, and that makes all the difference. Yes. So the devil is an important lesson, right, to come face to face, I think, with what we really are afraid of, what we think we're afraid of, to investigate that, to delve deep a little bit more, to see if it's working with us, and also just to see really how we relate to it in the beginning. Maybe it doesn't need to be such a fear. Maybe this addiction doesn't need to be such an enemy, right?
The
Yeah.
guy and the girl in this, they can't see their own chains and how easy it would be to take them off, but they
Mm.
can look at each other and they can see, oh, your chain could come off. How
There
does
you go.
mine, how does mine look?
There you
So
go.
they're trapped in their own way of thinking. They're trapped in their own egos. They're trapped in their own fear.
Yeah, there you go.
It's interesting. I went to a couple of Christian groups recently, and one of them, it was so obvious that because they were so scared of not going to heaven and going to hell forever, that they were holding on to like a lot of silly belief systems. And it was when I got it, it was shocking because they weren't logical belief systems. They turned God into a horrible person who would want them to burn in hell forever. I mean, it was just really, really crazy. And there's nothing that I could say to get them to see that. It's like they had this chain around their necks and they could not see it, and they were really frightened to even question it, which is the way I was when I was on my way out of Christianity. I was scared to death. So I think that's really interesting. It's like you have to be able to see clearly what the truth of the matter is, or you can't really change anything. Because you feel trapped in your own reality, which is incorrect. So yeah, you could walk out of that situation, but you would have to see in clarity what the whole situation was at that time.
I also
Yes,
think
yes.
though we can learn things from religion too, and that is discipline, right? If you think of the 7 deadly sins or whatever, and I can remember an Egyptian woman because I worked in Egypt for 7 years. And I asked her, "Oh, why don't you drink coffee?" And that she says, "I don't want to put anything in my body that that can control me." Right? Like she was very particular about what she put in her body. Right? So I just thought it was very insightful. She had a certain discipline because of her religion. Right? She was Muslim. I just wanted to read this, and then Alexandria, if you'd like to say a few final things about. This card is about temptation and control, addictions and manipulation. It asks us a most important question. Who or what will we allow to enslave us? And who or what will be under our control? Only by understanding this part of ourselves can we gain power over it and use it to our benefit rather than letting it use us. Any comments?
Well, for me, it's all about, again, going back to what a few people have shared, right? It's about not just what presents itself in front of you, like your fear or the negativity, the addiction, the bad patterns, but how you relate to it, how you choose to see it, what kind of a sense you choose to make of it, right? Because for this figure, let's talk in a very literal sense here, the devil. Okay, the devil. Most people will hear that, and even non-Christian people, just because our society here in North America has been so indoctrinated. There are a lot of people that are not even religious, and they just freak out so much about the devil or Satan, Lucifer. But for me, because I follow a Wiccan path, this is not even necessarily any of those figures. This is resembling very, very closely Baphomet. And Baphomet is not good or evil. He is the embodiment of, he's like a master of the elements. He's an embodiment of all of the elements. And he's a master of manifestation and a sovereign of the will, of true willpower, of true transcendental, spiritually aligned, divine willpower. So for me, if you were to present this image to me, I'll say that it's kind of sacred or holy, or I have respect for it. Does it mean that I worship evil? However, does it mean that I, sit at a cauldron and eat bat's wings and boil newborns in it and do evil things? Absolutely not. Does it mean that I like any of that stuff? Absolutely not. Does it mean that I like violence or that I'm a terrible person? No, I abhor all of those. I really don't do those things. But I'm in alignment with my will, or I try to be,
Yes.
right? That's what that image represents for me. So that's what it means for me. Why does it need to be something so evil and so
That's good.
threatening, right? So once addictions, once negative patterns, Why do you have to hate it? The more that you hate something, the more that you are tied into it, right? The more that you love something, the freer that you are. Love is liberation. Hatred is bondage.
Mm.
I have a question concerning the tails of those little people. One's on fire and the other looks like a little bowl of fruit. What's the symbolism of that?
Oh, the fruit of the tree of good and evil, of the knowledge of good and evil, maybe?
Yeah, you see, it was Eve who was the bad one there, according to the interpretation. But now it's Adam or whoever they are.
Oh, Eve's the one that's got the fruit.
Yeah. And he seems to be
Alexandria,
talking to her.
yes, Alexandria, do you have any comments on that? Like the tales of
This one, okay, in this particular depiction, like, I mean, you can see that the tail of the, yeah, the tail of the male figure is directly underneath the torch of the devil, right? So one could interpret that as the lust, okay, the lust of the male, the lust of the man, maybe that demonized, because I think that we hear a lot about toxic masculinity and all this stuff, right? And that men's sexuality, I think is a lot of men can be very afraid of it. That's a part that's repressed in a lot of I'm not talking about any one individual here or there, but I'm talking about in the collective consciousness. A lot of it has been really taught to males very unhealthily about how to relate to that part of their psyche and even their physical bodies. So perhaps you could say, okay, this is the negative spark of that, or the lust itself, the temptation, the thing that leads to, it's like a fire. So of course that fire is unbridled. It's just a pure element. But if it's not channeled, if it's not handled properly, right, it can lead to a lot of pitfalls. It can lead to a lot of confusion. It can lead to a lot of darkness, and it can do more harm than good, because the source of evil kind of in this way is presiding over the situation. Then with the fruit, and note that it's in a bowl, right? It's filling up a bowl. So for me, again, that kind of speaks to the receptive principle of the feminine. Okay. And then certainly we can draw this back, because it is kind of like a biblical figure almost. We can draw this back to the Garden of Eden myth with a forbidden fruit and such.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, his tail is on fire only because the devil has a torch keeping it lit.
Ah, yes.
I
Interesting.
thought it was the other way around.
Yeah, I was
His
wondering too.
His tail was lighting up
The torch.
I don't think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
The desire, yeah.
Lots to think
But
about.
I just want to go back to what you were saying earlier, Alexandria. Doesn't this kind of represent not to be enslaved by bad habits? Or am I simplifying it too much?
No, I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say so, because again, at this point, at this juncture of our wonderful meeting, I would just like to say everybody's approach to it, even having people who don't have the sense of sight, share their interpretations. It's extremely valuable, because for me, for all my knowledge of esotericism and mysticism, and being a reader of many years, I am given new insights, and I'm very thankful, I'm very grateful and blessed to hear even people who never touched the tarot or seen any cards, their interpretation of it, or what they see in a card. Sometimes it just refreshed me and inspired me so much, so everybody is just as valid in their interpretations as anybody else. But Diane, I think you're definitely, yes, that's one of the major meanings of this. Again, it really depends who I'm drawing it for, what kind of other cards come out, what their situation is, what they're asking, what they're kind of looking to get out of the reading. But definitely it can be with how you relate to your habits. For me, it really comes back to the paradox of our choices, right? And also what Brent said, that you're conscious of it in the first place, because these individuals are probably not just oblivious even that they're in the position that they're in. So coming conscious to it, but once you come conscious to it, it's very, very easy just to continue to live one's life on autopilot and to be resigned and to say, this is the way it is. So, for example, I know somebody right now, I'm not going to take much longer, but I know somebody right now who's leaving a codependent, abusive relationship of many years. And that is, that's difficult. But I mean, on her part, the difficulty really is that, you know, it's been easier for her to carry on with that storyline and to live that narrative and to allow her life to be overrun by her partner's story rather than face up to her own demons and start writing her own narrative out. You see? So
Yeah.
it's not even that you just recognize the fact that you're chained. You recognize the fact that you're chained. Well, I'm chained actually, and maybe it's easier and it takes less courage to stay chained than it does to take this chain off me and to walk away into something unknown.
That's right. People
Yes.
usually want to stay with something that's familiar, right?
Exactly. There you go.
Faith, we haven't heard too much tonight from you. Any final words? And then I think we'll end our meeting. So,
No, just listening.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank everyone. Alexandria, thank you for joining us tonight. And just so you know, Kelly and Bob did leave us a little bit because they're in Ontario, so it's quite late there. But I do want to thank everyone. This was an interesting topic. I learned so much tonight. So,
I vote that we do on the next week that we do it with the cards again and take a look at as many cards as we can. Every single card is valuable. So I
Do it the
suggest
way,
that.
do it the way you suggested, Brent, where we all look at it first and then
Maybe, yeah.
come up with
Yeah,
our
let's try that.
interpretations.
That'd be fun.
Yeah,
all right. Okay.
yeah, thanks.
Thank you again.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
Good
Have a-
Thank
night.
you. Bye-bye.
Good night.
bye.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.